Witness the Agonizer 9000! Enjoy the
Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to show you guys an incredibly strong Moze build for Mayhem 10, and I think this is going to be one of my candidates for my Guardian Takedown build on Moze because it is incredibly strong, it has really good survivability, and just plays really well, and it is focused on rocket launchers, grenades, and any explosives you can possibly do. So with that being said, we can go into the talents. Now the talent layout is pretty similar to some builds I've done in the past because it is just a really good talent layout for using a build that focuses on rocket launchers, on grenades, on explosive damage. So the first tree, because we have a super important talent in it, is Bottomless Mags. Cloud of Lead, every 4 shot doesn't consume ammo, deals additional incin damage. Then we have Stoke the Embers, just increase incendiary damage, which all the damage we deal also does additional incendiary damage on top of it. So increasing that is always really good. Redistribution, which when you crit, which most rockets or most newer rockets can have an effect that can crit. You gain ammo regen and health regen. The health regen is actually really strong in this, so it helps with survivability, especially in between your grenades healing you. Then we have Scrappy, which the handling and mode switch and weapon swap isn't really that used in this build, but 30% weapon damage is really big. Then we have Scorching RPMs, Fire Rate, Critical Hit Damage, and Iron Bear damage. All pretty good damage increases. Our Iron Bear does do some decent damage, even though I still don't think they've scaled it correctly, and I think they're going to do that with an upcoming patch, maybe the Guardian patch, not certain. The Iron Bear still does good damage, and it also helps you with some other synergy. So then we have Specialist Bear. If you're using the 2 same weapons on it, it does 60% increased damage. Then one of the most important parts of the build, Some for the Road. When you exit Iron Bear, you have infinite ammo for 5 seconds. Really good with rocket launchers. You can shoot infinite rocket launcher shots that are all super strong without using any ammo for 5 seconds. The weapons we're using for our Iron Bear are miniguns and exploding bullets. Now these do really good damage, and also since we're doing all splash damage, this gets pretty much all the synergies we do, and it'll also give us ammo back because of some of our talents. It'll heal itself. Super good with this type of build. Then we have Demolition Woman. Fire in the Skagden, 5 into that, which all splash damage does incendiary damage on top of that. Really big damage increase. Means of Destruction. When you deal splash damage, you have a chance to gain ammo back and grenades back. This is one of the most important talents in the build as well, because getting our grenades back is how we stay alive for the most part. Then we have Torg Cross Promotion, which has a chance to double your splash damage radius and gives us increased splash damage, which is super good. With the specific rocket launcher we're using, you do have to be careful with this because the radius when this procs is absolutely ridiculous and you'll probably hit yourself. Then we have Auto Bear, super important for this build. You're always getting into Iron Bear and just getting out right away to get the buffs from it, and then your Auto Bear does a good amount of damage and also procs a bunch of stuff for you, means destruction, stuff like that. Pull the Holy Paint, your grenades can now crit, pretty decent damage increase. Vampire, pretty much when your grenades hit, they heal you for percentage of your health, which is our main way to survive. You don't need a ton just because of the specific grenade we're using. We only put 3 into this. We can put it into more damage talents, and the healing is still going to heal us up enough to be able to stay alive for the most part. Explosive Punctuation, when you do splash damage, your action to go cooldown rate is briefly increased by 40%. Pretty big. It was a bit ago, but is still really good. This helps us get into our Iron Bear constantly because, as you remember, we get that infinite ammo for 5 seconds. Our Auto Bear constantly being out helps us with, getting more grenades, getting more ammo back. Then Short Fuse, when you deal any damage with a weapon, there is a chance of a secondary explosion centered on that target. Super good with rocket launchers because it's 75% of your gun damage. If your rocket launcher is hitting hundreds of thousands a bunch of times or millions a bunch of times, that can do really good increased damage. For the rest of our talents, Shield of Retribution, we just want a little bit of tankiness, so armored infantry, gun damage increase when your shields are active, and damage reduction. And then 3 into Drowning and Brass, which is just a stacking damage buff. The fire rate for most rocket launchers is not too important, so this is just a good damage increase. And with that being said, we can go into our items. Now this build is pretty versatile in terms of what rocket launchers you can use. In the past, I've done this build with Scourges. I have done it with the Yellow Cake, which is still super strong. I've done it with the Ion Cannon. Tons of different rocket launchers can work well with this. But the one we're using today is one of my favorite ones. It's incredibly strong, is the Backburner. Now pretty much what this does, you shoot it out and it's a big glob. It doesn't charge up like other launchers that usually shoot out big globs, but when it hits a target, it explodes into basically a vortex that kind of pulls stuff in. It's not a big radius. It deals damage over time, which is a decent bit of damage, but it's not a ton. And it shoots out, I think it's five or six additional projectiles that pretty much just kind of drape over it and land to the ground. And they can't shoot out like a different direction if it hits a wall or something like that. All of those things that pop out are what do the majority of the damage of this weapon. They hit incredibly hard because the initial hit really doesn't do damage. It starts that damage over time in the vortex, and then all these things shooting out do a ton of damage. And what's super good about this and with this build is that we have a chance to double our radius, and we just have pretty much every talent that increases explosive damage, increases radius of explosions. So this will hit targets a lot of the time and just do ridiculous amounts of damage. It's also pretty good because if there's targets in an area, it will hit them all for ridiculous amounts of damage, and it's all just super strong. Now with this weapon, I think there's still currently a bug in the game where this comes from Agonizer. On Mayhem 10, the Agonizer isn't scaling the items correctly, and there are ways to get this weapon scaled to Mayhem 10. If you want to know about that, there's videos on YouTube already going over how to do it. I'm sure there's a lot of people sharing Mayhem 10 versions of these weapons around like I have right here. That's pretty much how you're gonna have to get them. I'm pretty sure in the next patch they have said that they should be fixing that, so you shouldn't have to go do some workaround to get Mayhem 10 versions of this weapon. One of the best anointeds for this is 300% increased damage against enemies above 90% health. This is a really good anointed because this weapon can just one-shot stuff, and you'll see on the bosses, it just destroys them because any bigger target that has a much bigger model, a much bigger area that could be hit by damage, this thing is going to hit all of it. You'll see against, say, something like the Agonizer, it's an incredibly strong one-shot, which is pretty much one-shot it on Mayhem 10. Something like Grave Ward, this is incredibly strong with, even though Grave Ward has some ridiculous amount of health, this thing still shreds it, so it's super strong. The one issue with this is you kill yourself a lot. You do down yourself a lot, so make sure you don't have the Mayhem 10 anointed that you down yourself with. You have to hit targets with this. It's pretty important that you hit targets with the initial shot because then it's going to have a much higher chance of hitting that target with the projectiles that come out that do majority of the damage. That's all for the weapon. This is pretty much the only weapon we're using in this video. Like I said, there's a bunch of other rocket launchers that will still work pretty well with this build. For the shield, I am using an Old God, and the reason I'm using this, it gives the increased elemental damage. It gives elemental resistance, which is pretty good because we do hit ourselves a good bit with this, and just having damage resistance for elements is good overall. It has shield capacity, then it has on-axis go end, deal corrosive damage, which is really good. Again, with the on-axis go end effects, don't stack them and just try to change between ones that are going to be good for the situation you're in. If you don't have this shield, any shield that's ultra tanky is going to be pretty good. I think I have some more here. So like a recharger is going to be good. If you can get, stop gaps, if you can get transformers, all those are going to be pretty good shields. Anything super tanky with the anointed effects is going to be good. I think the Old God's still going to be the best shield in the game because of the extra damage on it. For the grenade, I do have a 57 cloning maddening tracker now. This one has shock damage on it, which is pretty good. This is the best grenade for these builds with Moze. They heal a ton, they explode a ton, which gives a ton of meter destruction procs. Just overall the best grenade for Moze. I wish they would give us a legendary version that we could go farm that is similar to this, that's super good for these Moze builds, because this is pretty much the best one, and it's harder to farm than any legendary grenades, just because it doesn't have a dedicated drop anywhere. Now for the class mod, we are still using a baby boomer that's level 50 because I haven't got a level 57 one that's this well rolled. Now the reason we're using this, means of destruction +3 is super strong. You don't have to worry about ever running out of ammo or grenades for the most part, and the other two talent rolls on this are pretty good. Grenade radius is good, weapon charge speed isn't that good, so pretty much what we're losing with using means of destruction is we're not getting very good secondary stats. There is a legendary class mod that we could get. You don't use the effect, and I haven't gotten any good rolls on one of those. Try out different class mods with this because because if you're finding that you're not running out of grenades, you're not running out of rocket launcher ammo, you don't need the extra means of destruction. Or if you're finding that where you're not running out of ammo with a different class mod, you don't need to use a baby boomer, you don't need the extra means of destruction talent rolls. But if you are, definitely get one of these or the legendary class mod and try to get as high means of destruction rolls on it as you can. This is the one area that I could really improve this build, is getting a much better class mod, or just using a completely different class mod, figuring out that I don't run out of ammo, or just using my ammo slightly more sparingly so I don't run out. So that's with that. Try out some different stuff with that. For our artifact, we are using a flesh melter. This is a flesh melter victory rush. The secondary rolls on it aren't that great, so that's something I can improve on with this a bit, but the flesh melter is super important for this build for the reason that when you're mobbing, if you're using a corrosive weapon and this, you pretty much just get higher damage than anything else can do. So say if you're using shock damage against shields, that's clearly going to be the best. It's going to give a pretty big damage increase. But if you're using a corrosive weapon with flesh melter stacked up against a shield, you're going to do better damage than just that shock weapon, because it's 27 times 5 stacks. 135% damage increase is massive. So when you're mobbing, keep out a corrosive weapon no matter what you're facing. For the most part, just use the flesh melter. It'll stack up, it'll do ridiculous amounts of damage. It's incredibly strong. Then the victory rush is also a pretty good buff when mobbing. So that is pretty much the entirety of the build. It is incredibly strong build. One of my contenders for sure, unless I find a better build or a much better build for the Guardian Takedown when that comes out. But if you want to see more Borderlands 3 videos, leave a like. If you liked the video, leave a comment down below what you guys think about this build, and thanks for watching.
Witness the Mechanizer 9000! Enjoy the Let's go another fucking round! Crush some shit!